Occam's razor for all this 4D chess stuff is actually quite simple. Donald Trump is a moron. Donald Trump has no idea what the is going on. He does not know how the world works. Welcome to the Atlantic Current. I'm Tull McAdoo from the Irish Politics Letter, and as always, here with me is Vince Martin from Wall Street in Maine. Vincent, that was episode 45. Was that you, I think, was it?
That was me. That was the best episode intro we've ever had. I stand by it.
Are you on like some sort of Trumpian road to Damascus? You're going to join me on the dark side, are you?
Well, I think I was in Damascus. I was just kind of hiding. I was in an alley somewhere. That is a point that I have made through the course of this podcast, but often a little bit more obliquely. I think I kind of tiptoed around it. We got to a point where I kind of had to stop tiptoeing.
Pray, Vincent, do tell me what changed your mind. I'm kind of offended that it's not me that's changed your mind, apparently.
Well, I mean, in the context of that argument, I was arguing that he was dumber than you thought. The case I was making for much of that episode was that Donald Trump was not guilty of corruption by reason of mental defect, basically, right? People, he's insider trading, he's doing this. And my whole case was, he's just not smart enough. He's not organized enough to do that. And we said then that we would come back to that idea. And over the past week, Donald Trump has helpfully provided some additional examples that we can discuss. So we're going to discuss some of his newer stuff. I think we're going to try and create a list. We're going to try to do the top 10 dumbest things that Donald Trump has ever said, because I think it actually gets to a point.
That's going to be like a 30-episode podcast or something.
It could be, except for the fact that some of them kind of not that much to say. You just go, holy that's dumb.
Yes.
Number 7.
Yeah, I have some other names for them, none of which would be allowed to go out without getting sued because of Ireland's 14th century defamation laws. So go on, start the ball rolling there.
I don't think him being a moron, the word I used, is quite the full explanation. Obviously, on an interpersonal basis, he has to show some kind of intelligence. He's just been around too long that if his intellectual capacity was that limited, that we wouldn't hear about. The best explanation I have, and you can tell me what you think of it, I'm still not satisfied with it. It's not that he lacks complete intellectual capacity. I think it's... you're already... you're already skeptical. His narcissism, I think, even still, we underrate. And I talked about that 2 weeks ago, this formulation he does where he says, nobody knows more about X than I do, which I think the count is literally over like 50 topics. He's now said that. People go, he's just being, that's just hyperbole. No, I think he actually believes that. The other thing I think is underappreciated, because it seems bizarre. He's almost 80 years old and he's been in the public eye for 50 years. His life experience is actually pretty limited.
Yeah.
If you think about, like, he got out of college, he worked for his father, not doing particularly aggressive stuff. It's not like he worked for his dad and was making decisions. He was working for his dad in his own admission, collecting rent checks in Brooklyn. He starts running projects. He's backed by his father's money, his father's political connections. He has enough money that it's people who are actually doing the work. It's people who are handling his taxes. It's people who are handling the unions, all these sorts of things. He's just yelling at people, get it done. All he cares about is designing the lobbies of the buildings and the lobbies of the casinos, which is hysterical because 50 years later, we're in a war in Iran and all he gives a about is designing the reflecting pool for the Washington Monument and everything else and his ballroom. So I think it's that combination. He doesn't know anything, but he believes he does know everything. And that's why you wind up with some of the staggeringly, almost incomprehensible things that he says, some of which are going to be on this list that we're going to talk about in a minute.
Okay, let me push back there, Vincent.
I knew you would. Okay. I knew you would.
You're assuming intelligence is a single well-behaved substance like beer or oil, petrol. When in fact it's more like the Irish weather, intermittent, locally intense, and liable to turn on you without warning. Okay? And Trump, go on, let me finish, or I'm going to have to fly over there. Okay?
You'll never get in, Tull.
Yes.
I'll give the administration your Twitter accounts. You're never getting me.
I'm never getting in, like everybody else trying to get to the World Cup also. Look, here's my thing, right? Donald Trump isn't stupid the way a broken toaster is stupid. Okay? He's stupid in the way a fox is kind of stupid and reckless sometimes, okay? Capable of flashes of cunning and stuff like that, but when there's something shiny and quick there's nothing to stop him chasing it off a cliff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of sounds like a 7-year-old.
Yeah. Well, you put him in a room with a handful of people and a clear objective, flatter this person, close that deal, dominate the conversation. He can manage kind of rough transactional cunning and cleverness. It's not intelligent.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't even think there's flashes of it. He's always kind of played the last poker hand, whatever he's playing there, isn't he?
Yeah, that's a really great point. Going back to his business days too, actually. Yeah, that's true.
He's always just playing the last poker hand and living off the memory of it or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all true. I mean, yeah, I think there are occasions where he shows some capacity for intelligence and understanding, but those are the things that interest him. If they haven't interested him to this point, he already assumes that he knows everything he needs to know about them. Then one of the examples we're going to talk about is one of the most famous things he's ever said.
Well, can I come back to Rex Tillerson there? Was he the CEO of ExxonMobil or some oil company?
He was the CEO of ExxonMobil, who was Trump's first Secretary of State. Yeah, and I know where you're going with this, yeah.
So this is a fella accustomed to spreadsheets, oil fields.
And really intensive mathematics.
Yes. Geology.
Oil drilling in the modern world is a very intelligence-intensive operation. Yep.
Physics.
Absolutely.
Applied physics. Applied maths.
Geopolitics.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you have to get in and out of some of these countries with, your oil under your arm without getting shot at.
Exactly.
So he's suddenly confronted with a man whose guiding principle is that reality itself is negotiable.
Yeah.
And of course, he reached for the nearest blunt instrument in English language and called him a moron. I do.
Yeah, he used the same word I did. Yeah. The frustration of listening to Trump try to understand something just got to him, and he just exploded. So yeah, the guy's a moron. I can't do it anymore. Yeah, I think that's true.
The thing with Trump is, right, he's not a thinker who occasionally says foolish things. Okay, I think he's a performer who kind of brushes up against some thinking and an intelligence that's in the room with him now and again. And I think he finds intelligent people to be largely uncooperative with him, and then he promptly returns to the showman, Trump the businessman kind of shtick.
He's made a couple comments over the years along those lines. It doesn't really like smart people. He had something just a couple weeks ago where he's talking about he didn't like hanging out with successful people. So they're always talking about how successful they are. He basically publicly just saying, yeah, I want to be the biggest swinging at the table. Which is like, yeah, we kind of figured that one out, Donald. We've seen most of the people you've surrounded yourself with for the last 40 years.
When we get to the people that he's surrounded himself, we've spoken about this before, they're sycophants.
Yep. Particularly this time around, when he had the ability to really choose. Yeah, we've talked about that so many times, the difference between the first term and the second term. Yep.
They don't push back against him, and that's why they are where they are in Iran at the moment. They try to appease his every need, and it's something of a conundrum, Vincent, that a man that can have so much power actually has so little power also.
I think that's a conundrum a lot of American presidents have bumped up against.
Do you think?
A lot of different ways. I think Obama has kind of referenced this, but that idea, wait a minute, I'm the most powerful man in the world. Why can I not fix this? I think a lot of American presidents have come to that realization at certain points. I think it's taken him 5.5 years to even have the possibility of understanding that. Like you said, that's why we're in Iran. You
go back to all the great leaders through history, starting with, Charlemagne or whatever the case may be, and that they've always surrounded themselves with pretty smart guys, pretty smart people.
Yeah, and there's an irony there for the GOP, because that was always the thing that people said in support of Reagan's biggest defenders, because Reagan was not somebody who believed in having 6-hour meetings about the complex details of, the Soviet military and stuff. And people gave him credit for building a cabinet and an advisory team of people who were legitimately very experienced and respected, often on a bipartisan basis. His supporters have always pointed to that. It is ironic that Trump, in the same party 40 years later, has kind of run the presidency in a somewhat similar way, but gone the exact opposite direction in terms of everyone around him. I think that says a lot.
The problem with Trump is when the room gets larger than its attention span. Okay?
Yeah.
Scale is the enemy for him, or, multiple issues are the enemy. Policy, diplomacy, history, finance.
Length of time. He came out this week and said, I'm getting bored with Iran. I kept saying that was going to happen. He actually just publicly came out and said it a few days ago.
Yes, you were right for once, Vincent.
Yeah.
There you go.
That does get to the point I was trying to make. We have mocked his supporters for saying that Trump is playing this game of 4D chess with all these things, all these negotiations. Oh, it's part of the deal. My point is that I think his critics fall into precisely the same trap. They assume that he's playing 4D chess. He doesn't have the organization. He doesn't have the patience. He doesn't, as he said, he doesn't have the focus. He's just sort of a ball of instinct and narcissism.
Yeah. Now, let me point out, I'm one of those critics that doesn't believe he's playing 4G chess at all. I don't even think he's playing drafts or checking football in the United States. When you have diplomacy, finance policy, education policy, health policy, these are not arenas where instinct and bravado will carry you far, to be honest.
Exactly. Great point. Yep.
They kind of require dull virtues, patience, consistency. Now, this is not unique to Trump. A lot of politicians don't have patience or consistency, but they do have a respect for facts that don't, applaud you back.
I do want to bring up one other point, which has been interesting. I'm kind of coming out of the closet with my theory, so to speak.
Okay.
One of the issues, I think, with what we're saying is, if we're right, why has this not been the angle through which Trump has been covered for 11 years or indeed for 50 odd years at this point? And one of the things I did realize is that it's a hard argument to make if you're doing what we do, if you're a podcaster or if you're a writer, because once you come out and say that, it basically destroys your ability to make content in the future, right? Like you can't come out on episode 45 and be like, no, you know why Trump's doing this? He's an idiot. He's a moron. He doesn't think. He's all instinct and narcissism. Well, at episode 55, you can't be talking about Iran and go, well, I think what Trump is trying to do. It has occurred to me in the last couple of weeks that, consciously or not, that the people who cover Trump very much have an incentive not to take this angle, because then he just becomes a lot less interesting. It's just much better content if you're podcasting or writing to try and figure out what Trump is doing and why he's doing it, and to have these analyses as opposed to just having this blanket catch-all, which kind of ruins any content you're going to make about him essentially for forever.
Right. Look, there's a whole podcast genre dedicated solely to Trump.
Yeah.
His psychology, what he did when he was a 4-year-old, who he was making out with. I've listened to podcasts from Niall Ferguson, the senior fellow at Stanford's Hoover Institution. He's a top historian, very respected man. And he does whole podcasts on Trump's foreign policy. And I'm looking and I'm like, how did he extrapolate that from what Trump just did?
Yeah. Because you have to, right?
But you don't have to.
Then you don't have a podcast. If your podcast is just Trump did this, Trump did that, he's a moron, we'll see you later. Yeah.
Right.
Stick around for an ad from Squarespace.
Look, in the future, right, AI is going to be able to scrape every podcast in the world that said anything about Trump, okay? About his foreign policy, about his domestic policy, about all that jazz. And I'm going to save future AI gigawatts of data, okay, right?
Yeah.
In small doses, Trump can appear sharp. Yes, he can appear sharp. But the same way a fox is trying to, sussing out a hen house, okay? Put him in a meeting and keep the topic narrow as possible, between your legs narrow, right? And he'd perform a passable imitation of a man thinking, right?
For a short amount of time. Yeah. The meeting cannot be 45 minutes long.
Yeah. But you'll give him a microphone, an audience, on the horizon, and his brain goes on holiday with his mouth. Yeah. And that's it. You've lost him then. We've seen the rallies. We've seen the rallies. It's there for everybody to see. He's not a particularly bright fellow. He is a product. He's the most damning product of reality TV that's ever been unleashed on the world. Have I gone too far, Vincent? Your silence is deafening.
No, I'm going to take advantage of that lead in, because I think that's perfect. We're working on a couple big names in Ireland. Hopefully we'll be on in the next couple of weeks. Meredith Ogilvie-Thompson is going to come back. We're going to do an episode on September 11th, relatively soon. Going to be obviously dark, but incredibly fascinating as an American, as someone who was there that day, to kind of get the outside view. We're going to make one more quick pitch here. We hate doing this, but if you've gotten this far and enjoyed the episode, please give us a good rating there on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, whatever your platform. It is awful to prime the pump of the algorithm that controls our lives, but we got to do it. So just a quick request. But one of the big projects I've wanted to do from the jump is a huge biography of Trump as a person. And that's something that we're working on, and we should have the first part out at the end of the month. But the idea that he is a product of reality television, if you go through his biography, I actually think there's a reasonable case that he is the inventor of reality television, or at least the underlying idea of it, the underlying attractiveness of those characters. Maybe he didn't create reality television as an art form, but he might be the first reality television character. We'll take the opportunity there to kind of pitch that. That's going to come out in a couple of weeks, but that's going to be something we're going to play around with a lot on there. So, but yeah, you're right. The fact that they spent 14 years burnishing his reputation on that show certainly is, it's had a couple long-term consequences I don't think they foresaw.
Are any of the people that produced that show dead? Are they? Yeah, dead. Has somebody like taken them out the back and, made them again,
I thought maybe you were asking to see if they were dead, because then you could just libel the shit out.
Well, that too also. But just, did nobody like pull these people to the side and, just throw them in the hudson?
No, I mean, they're all still in polite society. Mark Burnett is the guy who started The Apprentice, and he made his name and his fortune with Survivor. He's still out there. There's one guy whose name escaped me who worked on The Apprentice, who has kind of flipped and positioned himself as the anti-Trump guy. The problem being he keeps coming out and saying things that even I'm like, I don't think that's true.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
How many series did Trump do?
I think there's, 14 seasons, as we call them, of The Apprentice.
Jesus Christ.
It started in 2004. There were 6 seasons, and then there were 8 seasons with The Celebrity Apprentice. And then he left in 2015. I don't remember exactly if he left because he was running or because there was a thing, NBC was pretty upset when he gave his first campaign speech, the Mexicans being rapists and bringing drugs and all that stuff. But yeah, they did 14, as we call them, seasons. There are seasons in a series. Like you guys say series. I don't know. I forget.
The language is mixed up now. Some people call them series. Some call them seasons. There's children in Ireland walking around talking like Americans these days. I mean,
that's horrifying. Yeah.
I'm living in a strange reality at the moment.
We just spent 25 minutes talking about how strange it all is.
Yeah, I just spent.
Can you imagine? What do you think when you were in high school, whatever you guys call high school? You would ever be having these conversations about an American president?
Vincent, the fact that I'm talking the last 25 minutes about a reality TV star, I have ex-girlfriends that dumped me because I couldn't tolerate them talking about whatever reality TV was on for even 30 seconds. I would zone out. I'd go into La La Land, off to the pub, and I wouldn't see him for 2 days because, they were still talking about reality TV. I can't deal with it. I
sympathize.
I just can't believe we're talking about it. Because Trump didn't emerge from reality TV, did he? So much that he'd revealed that, he was the one living in it all along. The man didn't adapt to the format. The format adapted to him, I think. Would that be a fair read of it?
I think what the reality television show did was bring cameras into his building and film him doing exactly what he had done off camera for 30 years.
Do you think?
Yeah. I mean, all he was doing on The Apprentice was creating the illusion that he was running a big business, making tough decisions, firing people, handling all this stuff. And that was what he had told everybody for 30 years that he'd been doing, and he hadn't been.
Yeah.
It's not a joke to say that, like, when he was running the casinos, that he spent hours and hours on the design, and then people come to him and go, okay, well, we have this problem with the New Jersey Gaming Board, which is not a joke here. Gaming regulators, particularly in New Jersey, do not mess around. They are serious people that you need to deal with. And if they would go, okay, we have this problem. Well, you guys deal with it. Meanwhile, and then he's literally looking at like carpet swatches for the lobby of these casinos. Like, all The Apprentice was his story, his illusion put to television. That's all it was.
Yeah, it was a show about Trump playing a businessman on television, which turns out is a skill disturbingly transferable to politics.
Yeah. That part is absolutely true.
The genius of reality television is that it removes the burden of reality. Okay?
Yeah.
Consequences can be edited out, complexity is discouraged, and every problem can be solved within an hour with ad breaks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Trump, I think, absorbed these lessons quite deeply. He brought them into politics,
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Yeah.
He treats governance as a production meeting or some sort, but there's nobody there to edit out the bad stuff with Trump.
Yeah, I think that's true. But long before The Apprentice, there was a lot of quotes from a lot of people who knew him in the business world. They just talked about the fact that he acted as if and occasionally explicitly said that reality was sort of whatever he wanted it to be. And here we are. So let's try it. I do want to kind of do this little top 10 list. It's a little bit cheesy. This
is your list. I have a list that would get us cancelled. But anyway, you do it. And maybe I could do my list another time.
You're welcome to throw in any items on the list you want.
Are we doing the dumbest thing or the most nefarious things?
This is dumb. We are going to focus.
Dumb.
Yeah, I've made this point before. I think it's hard for people to really get down to just how big some of these blind spots is, how ridiculously bad his understanding of the world in a lot of ways is. It's without exaggeration 6 and 7-year-old stuff in some.
It is, yes, it is.
It really is. That's not a joke. So I want to kind of keep the focus. So,
okay.
And we can start with 2 recent ones just because they're in the news. We're not ranking these. Let's put it that way. This cognitive test stuff, I'm like literally, I'm going, I don't even know what to say. Like, I don't know if you just say, did you just explain that this cognitive stuff? I don't understand how this is possible that he has done this. He's done this now for 8 years, bragged about passing a cognitive test, which we know what it is. It is a screening test for dementia.
Right.
He keeps and this is not new. And I do some of the weird stuff he says. So people go, oh, look at the dumb. He's so dumb. He talks about Hannibal Lecter at campaign rallies. There's another exchange where he talks about like, oh, you can't have electric boats because then if the boat sinks, you have to choose between getting electrocuted by the battery and eaten by the shark and all this stuff. And people are mocking him. Some of that stuff you can explain away as him just kind of being goofy. Sometimes he does get tongue-tied. There's no edge to this. Like there's no other explanation for him doing this over and over again, other than the fact that he actually believes that taking the test is proof that he's a genius. Like he has to believe that. There's nothing else. This is not good politics. This is not him manipulating the media. This is not him trolling the libs, right? I mean, do you see any other possible explanation?
I don't think it's a series of gaffes. I think it's a comprehensive worldview he's thought out in his head for the last
These are not
years.
Gaffes. No, you can't say that they're gaffes. He's done it 15 times.
Like his entire philosophy is continuously built on whatever popped into his head. When you talk about boats with electric boats and stuff like that. I mean, the first thing he thought of is throwing the toaster into the bath while his wife was in it, probably, and electrocuted.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's going on there. I mean, look, politicians say foolish things all the time. It's part of the job. They get called out on the hop all the time. I mean, we had a politician in Ireland recently saying, that they're going to investigate what's going on in Limerick with the alumni going to St. Petersburg. I mean, they're not making giant tinfoil hats over there now, are they, Vincent? But anyway, look, most politicians didn't have the courtesy to try to hide their gaffe or hide the stupid thing that they said. Okay. And
by the way, like we edit our podcast. We're not trying to find things where he just said something silly or it came out wrong or whatever. Yeah.
I don't know, is this on your list? I'm doing this off the top of my head, so stop me in my tracks if I'm wrong. Yeah, I could have been an Irish politician and said it, but didn't they suggest hurricanes could be stopped by nuclear weapons?
That one is not on the list just because I actually don't think he said it in public.
Yes.
Yeah. I try to focus on the ones that he has actually said in public.
Okay.
That reporting was strong enough that he almost certainly said that in an Oval Office meeting.
All right.
To me, something he said in public, I think actually makes the point a little stronger. But yeah, he did that. Yeah, there's a famous Sharpie incident with the hurricane. The other one he gets picked on for, which I think is more of a misspeaking, but it was funny, I think it was Hurricane Florence a few years ago, and his line was that the hurricane was, quote, one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water, which is...
that's a place
no, that's more of a gaffe. That's like a George W. Bush kind of malapropism, so I didn't put that on the list, but it's still funny. That's a good one. Right,
so yeah, water's wet, shock horror. I'm going to have to do dementia tests because I have so much Trump stuff popping into my head. I'm not sure if it's true or not. Okay. He had some musings about disinfectant injections during COVID. And if I remember correctly, the chief medical officer's eyes popped out of her head at that press conference and she went viral. It had 60 million views or something. The look on her face, the look of
horror on her face. Yeah. Yeah. Deborah Birx. Yeah. We'll do that as number 2.
Okay.
Because this is one I actually do want to talk about because it's a perfect example of what I'm trying to say. It's also a perfect example of the fact that people don't really give enough credit to how badly he understands things and how badly he thinks. Yeah, this is a famous thing. This is April 2020. The coronavirus pandemic has just arrived. He's doing these daily briefings. Yeah, we're not going to read out the whole quote, but it starts with, supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just powerful light. And then he goes on and on and on about how if we can get ultraviolet light and bleach into the body, we can kill the coronavirus. And everybody remembers this as Donald Trump told Americans to inject bleach to cure themselves of the coronavirus. And his supporters pushed back with a little bit of fairness, saying he didn't actually tell anybody to do this. He was just kind of floating the idea. There were stories afterwards that poison control centers lit up with calls from people asking if they should drink bleach. I think it's kind of widely believed.
People did drink bleach and ended up in hospital?
I think it's kind of believed at this point that was an urban myth.
Was it? I'm believing it.
But this is a case where the truth is so much more damning than the story, because I want to give two pieces of context. One, that day, and there's an article in Politico that was written exactly a year later that talks about this. They had a staff meeting with Trump. They're basically giving him the most up-to-date information they have on COVID. And what they are telling him is that they have run these studies and they have found that sunlight can kill the COVID virus, so can disinfectant, and so can ultraviolet light.
Right.
And it's hard to remember now, but these things actually kind of weren't 100% known at the time. And in this Politico article, they quote a senior White House staffers, how the person is named, saying they were really worried about this appearance because when he left the meeting, they didn't think he understood what they were talking about. This is a staffer for Trump. First of all, basically saying, yeah, they had this meeting about pretty basic science concepts. We didn't know what he would do. Second, at the meeting, there's a big board, and there's a picture that the BBC took of him looking at this board. It's got the two things. It has the bleach and the ultraviolet light showing, it's just a graphic that he has up there. If you go through his quote, where he starts by saying, suppose we use ultraviolet light, and he turns to Deborah Birx, the woman who you're talking about, whose horrified reaction went viral, and he says, okay, you guys are going to test that. Here's the quote. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way, and I think you said you're going to test that too. It sounds interesting. And then I see the disinfectant, et cetera, et cetera. Is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Here's the takeaway if you pay attention to Donald Trump. Donald Trump thought that he had solved the coronavirus pandemic. That's what he thought. He legitimately thought, oh my God, they're telling me that bleach and UV light killed it. So if we just get that inside the body, the pandemic's over.
Right.
That's legitimately what he's saying. If you listen, if you kind of parse the words where he's turning to Birx, he says, you said you're going to test that. The thing that Trump is saying that he said, the recommendation that he made, oh, get light inside the body. And Birx, evidently, according to Trump, told him, oh, yeah, we'll test that. Yeah, we'll see if we can cut people open and shine a fucking ultraviolet light inside their chest cavity to kill a virus that's probably in their bloodstream.
Right. Doctors generally prefer their patients not to treat the cleaning cupboard as an amuse-bouche of shot disinfectant you can take. Right?
Oh, that's that too. But it's not stunning in the context of what we're saying. Someone tells him you can kill the virus this way. His first instinct is to believe that he is as smart as the cutting-edge researchers working on COVID. He's going to figure out an answer. He's going to tell Deborah Birx, who spent her life in the service of science, he's going to recommend to her how she should stop a global pandemic. He's figured out that thousands and thousands of people working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to solve this global catastrophe. He thought he solved it. That's the level of stupidity. That's the narcissism there. Well, that's how he sees the world. He thinks he can fix everything.
No, I'm wondering, is this on your list also? Didn't he say windmills cause cancer or something?
That is on the list. He has said that repeatedly. The noise from windmills causes cancer. That's one I don't know. What are you at? I mean,
does he think cancer is some sort of renewable energy or something? What's going on there? It's
I don't even know where he could have heard that one.
You hear all kinds of theories. He's looking at Reddit or something at 4:00 in the morning. About
I think you give him too much credit. Reddit is. Yeah. I think Reddit's
too highbrow.
Yeah, the list for him.
Too highbrow from perhaps.
Yeah.
Or he maybe saw something on Babylon Bee or The Onion and thought it was real, perhaps.
That's not entirely implausible.
What else is on your list, Vincent? Because I'm the more we go into this now, the more I'm thinking I need a drink after we finish this podcast.
Yeah. The more recent one, the more fun one, which another one I don't really know what you do with, where he has proudly told everybody in the last couple of weeks that he has come up with a new insult. They're the Democrats.
Right, okay.
And what he did to come up with the Democrats, he took out the E of Democrats,
yes,
replaced it with a U, but he also took the B off the end of dumb, because a lot of people don't know that dumb ends in a B. This is a quote he has said in some form like 3 or 4 times over the past 2 weeks. A lot of people don't know that dumb ends with B.
Do we know if he's literate?
It depends on your definition of literate, I'd say.
I mean, have you ever seen his signature? Yeah, I mean, his signature is just like up and down, up and down, up and down.
It's really weird. He does have a very distinctive signature, yeah. I don't know. I don't even know what you say about that one. That's just because his thing, when he says a lot of people don't know, that means that he didn't know. That's his thing. And we can add another one to the list, which we've talked about before, was when he was getting interviewed by Piers Morgan, when he was president of the United States the first time, and he told Piers Morgan about England. He goes, oh, well, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it, some people call it England, some people call it Great Britain, some people call it United Kingdom. You've got a lot of names. I just tell people to pick the one they like. And Piers Morgan's like, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah, you let him go into Northern Ireland to say that and see how long he lasts.
Yeah.
Let him come to parts of Ireland and say that and see how long he lasts. I mean, I can remember he visited here once, and a lot of people were really worried that he was going to say, I'm really happy to be in England or something like that.
I'm sure, yeah.
He wouldn't get off the island alive,
Yeah. There were staffer meetings trying to teach him about the border and stuff. But to my point, Piers Morgan goes, well, they're not the same thing. And Trump goes, oh, yeah, I know that, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
No, he didn't know that. And that's so his thing. When he says a lot of people don't know something, that means that it's something he just found out, which, again, further proves our points.
Didn't he stare at the sun during
Yeah, that's on the list. You didn't say it.
I was going to say the apocalypse, but I meant an eclipse.
Yeah,
didn't he stare
that's
at the
a
sun?
Freudian slip in the context of this conversation. Yeah, he stared at an eclipse. There's a photo. It wasn't a mistake. It's not like a bad angle or something. Yeah, it's Melania standing there with glasses on and him looking straight up at it from the balcony of the White House. Yeah,
she didn't have just a pair of glasses on. She had a pair of bloody. It was like a whole headset on her. Just
she had the eclipse glasses. Yeah, so it was a big deal. Everyone had them.
Yeah, and obviously he has access to all the best government experts in the world. He probably got briefings before he went on the balcony, and presumably there was just this one person whose sole job was to say, Mr. Trump, Donald Trump, Mr. President, please don't stare at the sun, for the love of God and all that's holy. Do not stare at the sun. And there he was out on the balcony, squinting at the apocalypse like it owed him money. Yeah. He was staring at it like it owed him money. Good grief. Imagine being the person trying to manage him, whispering in his ear, do X, Y, and Z, don't do anything else. That's the worst job in the world, I think.
His fighter jet stuff is another good one. I think that's number 7. We're merging a few quotes over the years into this.
Okay, right.
This is from last May. He complained about the F-35 fighter jet, which is one of our workhorse aircraft that's utilized by multiple branches of our military. Trump said he didn't like it.
Okay. Why not? Am I going to be shocked?
Because it has a single engine.
Ooh, right.
Quote, I don't like single engines, ... If an engine goes out, it's nice to have 2, 3, 4. That's why I like the 747. It has 4.
Right.
The 747, of course, is a passenger carry jumbo jet.
Okay, so that's a man that's never served in the military, highlighted for all.
It's a man who's never thought through how a fighter jet works. Just throw an extra engine on it. That's a man who's never seen Top Gun, Tull. That's how bad this is.
You see, what you talk about here, the Marvel almost is that it's not a single statement. We're on number 8 there now or something.
Yeah.
It's the consistency of the stupidity.
Yeah.
He doesn't just stumble into this nonsense. He kind of arrives there plants a flag, invites the cameras. There's no visible mechanism for doubt about whatever's grinding his gears. There's the monkey in the brain in his head is just turning that wheel. And
there is no doubt. That's the one thing that is really noticeable about his speech patterns. He never does that. Even most politicians do that to some extent. They go, well, this is a complicated situation. He never goes, oh, this is complicated. Except as we get to number 9, he actually alludes to that. That single engine thing was in 2025. In 2017, he liked the F-35 because it was, quote, almost like an invisible fighter because it's stealth. This is what Donald Trump thinks a stealth fighter jet is. Quote, almost like an invisible fighter. And then later, quote, the enemy cannot see it. Even if it's right next to it, it can't see it.
Oh, God.
Everything he's saying in that quote suggests that he believes that stealth jets are not, it's not like, oh, they jam radar and radar can't pick them up. He thinks they're actually invisible.
Right. Like the Fantastic Four had a plane like that.
And if you don't believe that, here's the last quote in the series of number 7. I'm not a huge believer in stealth, design, and the shape. You're going to design an ugly plane for stealth reasons, and then 6 months later, they're going to figure it out, and you're stuck with the plane.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know, but yeah, he just does not know what the word stealth.
I'm actually lost for words, and I'm really lost.
Yeah, that one's
a
tough one. Yeah.
So
he said in response, we're doing a super F-22. And there's an article on a pretty well-respected defense news website trying to figure out what the hell the F-20, like he just essentially created a new plane that the American military was going to do. That there was no congressional discussion. There was no authorization. No one in the Department of Defense had discussed. He just goes, oh, yeah, we're going to make a new plane. I don't like stealth.
Yeah, he conjured up something from his imagination again, which is quite good at, in fairness. What was the magnets thing? What was that magnets? What he said about magnets also?
Quote, all I know about magnets is this. Give me a glass of water. Let me drop it on the magnets. That's the end of the magnets.
Right. What was he talking about there?
I mean, why are you asking these questions?
Is there context? What was the context?
It doesn't matter. I actually did look up the context. By this point, my eyes were bleeding, man. I'm just sure.
Right, okay.
I think it was at a rally. He was rambling.
Well, that gets back to my point about if you give him any longer than 10 or 15 minutes, his brain goes walkies.
Yeah.
Saw the glass of water in his hand, probably had an incident with a magnet a couple of minutes or before he went on stage, and that's where he arrived at. It's, as I said, you got these big shot historians and geopolitical thinkers trying to assign something to something that's not there.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I think Tull's theory that he's a tick, as we'd say in Ireland, is probably the most soundest and reasonable explanation as to what's going on in Trump's head, or lack of.
Yeah, we'll get through the last 2 here. We wanted to make our point. We are making our point.
Yes.
We'll do number 9. One of my favorite quotes of his of all time, maybe my favorite. It's going to drive you up the wall, given episode number 8 from Trump. Quote, nobody knew that healthcare could be so complicated. That was in 2017. I mean, that's his worldview. If you want one quote to just get to his worldview. No one knew. I didn't know, which means nobody knows because I knew everything. And it's stunning. Healthcare, American healthcare. The topic that, as we said half jokingly at the time, ruined our Christmas because we were trying to do a podcast on it. No one knew it was so complicated. I mean, you just out of your mind, man.
What was the context? Do we have context for this? Was somebody dying? Was somebody sick?
No, this was in his first term when because he campaigned, Obamacare is a disaster. We're going to have a better health care plan. He said that he was going to have a health care plan out when he took office, and he didn't. And then he still didn't. And then so Porter asked him, how come you don't have a health care plan? And he goes, hey, look, it's hard. Nobody knew this was so complicated. We didn't, how did we?
I remember now. It went on for 2 years that he didn't have a health plan, wasn't it?
Well, like I said, that quote was in 2017. The article with that quote that I found anyways points out that his health care plan would arrive by mid to late March 2017. It is now early June 2026. He has never released a health care plan.
Well, you see me rubbing my face here.
Yeah.
Right? It's because of a headache, right?
Yeah.
He came out with a statement saying that who knew healthcare could be so complicated, which is the same way as a small child coming up to you saying the fire's hot.
Yeah.
Or the ocean is wet, or the hurricanes are wet.
Yeah.
I mean, this is spoken by a man who's trying to run a civilization. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And who has spent years saying that the last guy trying to run a civilization, his healthcare plan was a disaster and it was easy to fix and all this stuff. Over those entire years, at no point did it ever occur to him to literally just read an article, talk to someone on Obamacare. At no point over the 8 years he was railing against Obamacare did it occur to him to get any information on the topic at all. Not one iota.
I like looking at syntax sometimes, and the opening 2 words there are nobody knew.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. Oh, someone knew. Oh, someone knew. That's someone who's everyone knows this, right? The doctors know. The actuaries in your insurance companies know.
Every American knows. We talked about this. We see our bills.
We did a whole episode on it. The administrators know. The hospital administrators know. The lawyers know. Especially the lawyers definitely know.
Yeah.
And more importantly, anybody that's ever been a bloody patient in their life also knows. But according to Trump, nobody knew.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying I think that quote is just such a perfect encapsulation of his worldview. Again, people are going, it's probably hyperbole. Context of all this, I don't think it is. I think he's legitimately, he goes, well, why is this so hard? I mean, that's kind of his thought process. Why is this so complicated? I didn't know it was so complicated. Of course you don't know it's complicated. You never had a job.
Yeah, well, he mistakes his confidence for competence, Vincent, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't he? That's what's going on there.
Yep.
A lot of politicians do that anyway, but I mean, he's the hyper capitalist extreme version of it.
Which is always funny when people go, he's not really a politician. That's why people like him. He's the most politician person ever.
Yeah.
He's trying to be a politician. He just doesn't really have the capacity to do it. And we'll get to the last one, which kind of proves this point too. And I'll link to this article in the Substack. I don't need to go through all the details, but we did an episode when he went to Davos. I think that was back in March. He's speaking at the World Economic Forum. And without exaggeration, the heads of the largest banks in the world are in the audience as he's speaking. And he's trying to give support for a policy proposal, which he had put out via executive order a couple of weeks earlier, which was a cap on interest rates for credit cards. He wanted interest rates for credit cards capped at 10% for a year, which is just a terrible, terrible idea. Again, we'll link to it in the Substack if you want to see what I wrote about at the time. But he's explaining this to the bankers whose company issue these cards. He says, it's terrible. These companies have profit margins of 50%, and yet they charge interest rates of 30%. I'm paraphrasing a little bit there.
Okay.
The problem is, after he has issued an executive order, after he has gone to speak in front of bankers who run the world, the companies he's talking about are not the same companies. The companies that have an operating margin of 50% are MasterCard and Visa, which run the systems. The companies that are charging 30% interest are the actual banks.
Right, yeah.
And that, I think, is interesting, not only in the point from the quote that you opened this with, that he doesn't understand how the world works. That's a pretty stunning thing for someone in business to not understand, by the way. It also shows your point about how little pushback he's getting from his advisors. That got all the way to the point of an executive order being put out, of him using political capital, of him upsetting people in the financial industry, of him having kind of some of his core conservative supporters go, this is far left, socialist price controls nonsense. They went all the way down that path. At no point did he understand what he was doing. There's no way around that quote. He legitimately did not understand what he was doing, did not understand what companies are charging the interest rate on credit cards.
Now, these companies are notoriously tricky to deal with in terms of their business models and X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to actually give him a bit of a pass on this, Vincent. I see you scrunching up your face.
Yeah, there's nothing tricky about it. You know everybody knows who MasterCard and Visa are, and everybody knows who Bank of America are. They're not the same company.
No. In Europe, we might not have the same kind of outlook now, perhaps.
Perhaps, yeah.
No, I know. I know personally at MasterCard and Visa, I know who they are. There's a big push underway in Europe at the moment to decouple from the both of them.
Right.
And I think that would have been far too complicated for Trump to understand. But I think there would be a lot of other politicians in the same boat, to be perfectly honest.
Do you really? I don't.
Have you ever sat in a room full of politicians, Vincent? Say 20.
I've never had the pleasure. No.
Yeah, it's something to behold. It's something to behold. Really is.
I guess that's fair. I think the difference is that getting that to actual policy. There probably are politicians who would make that mistake. I don't think that there are politicians who would have people around them that let them get to the point where they were proposing that policy without having that mistake corrected. Not going to Davos.
Yeah, not in Davos.
Yeah.
You might.
You can absolutely see a far left Democrat going on some podcast and saying and making that mistake.
Yeah,
but he or she would not be submitting a bill with that mistake in it. And that's what he did. I mean, it's in his executive order. Like, it's his executive order. This is his speech. And at the very least, if he's a guy who says, I know more about business than anybody in the world, it's an inexplicable error. It's not a gaffe. It's not a bad teleprompter. It's not him misspeaking. There's nothing else that you can take from that quote other than the fact that he issued an executive order to regulate an industry. Doesn't even understand how it's structured. And I think that's like kind of a good one to end the list on because it's just staggering. It really is.
Yes, Vincent. I mean, you can declare victory over hurricane. I mean, you can argue with a virus. Squint down the sun. But the universe will always remain stubbornly unimpressed by your stupidity. I mean, the universe doesn't negotiate or applaud, and it certainly does not care about your presidential ratings, which are quite low for him at the moment, I believe. I think they're 37%.
Historically so, yeah.
37%. If you gave an Irish politician 37% to bite the hand off you, all our political party leaders are between 15 and 20%.
Yeah, so that's fair. Trump in his first term very famously tweeted out a poll from Rasmussen Reports, which has always been the most conservative friendly pollster. And he put out a big tweet celebrating when he got to 50% in his first term, and everybody had a lot of fun with that. Oh, yay. half the country doesn't think you're doing a job. Way to go, Trump.
And just to finish up, Vincent, right? I actually find this quite admirable on some level. The same way a dog would find a bone, a bit admirable, perhaps. And the likes of you and I and most people, right, we're constrained by reality, by facts, by the wife.
By shame.
Shame, yes. The low nagging fear of sounding ridiculous, the nagging self-doubt.
Yep.
But Trump operates free of these limitations.
It really does. Yeah, that's great. It's so true. Yeah. Yep.
He's kind of achieved some sort of rhetorical libertarianism, perhaps. Every idea is equally valid.
Anarchy. It's rhetorical anarchy.
Well, that's what libertarianism is at an extreme level, But
I guess that's fair.
Every idea is equally valid, even the stupid ones, and even the things that just be rattling around his brain. So to leave on this note, I'm going off to have some sort of nagging self-doubts, and you as our producer-in-chief are going to have some nagging self-doubts about what to cut and what to keep in, aren't you?
Yeah, I think maybe in honor of Trump, I just won't proof check it.
Yeah.
That'll be our meta commentary.
We'll see how that goes down, Vincent.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. It was fun, horrifying, fascinating, dark, all things Trump, I think.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great way to describe Trump. Well, folks, I'd just like to echo what Vince said earlier, but I'll go one step further. If you listen to the podcast and don't give it a 5-star rating or share with your friends, I'm going to put an Irish curse on you.
That's true. The West Cork ones are the worst kind, too.
Yes, you don't want a West Cork. You don't want a West Cork hex on the back of your head, I'll tell you that much. I'm Tull from the Irish Politics Newsletter.
And I'm Vince Martin from Wall Street in Maine. Thank you so much. Stay honest.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.